Chapter 3. Returned from the tower after their desperate battle against the goblins, which ended with only 2 people surviving. Han's arm had regenerated and he got straight to training, deciding to accept his new reality in the world of pick-me-up and the fact that he was summoned as a 1-star hero from birth. There were 2 ways to die in the world of pick-me-up, one being synthesis, which was the fate Shay suffered, and the other is during battle. Despite getting lucky during the synthesis with Shay and surviving the battle with the goblins, Han knew being a 1-star meant he was disposable. From their basic stats to the growth rate, 1-stars were the lowest of the low. Not wanting to end up as material to strengthen another hero or die in battle, Han was determined to grow stronger and exact revenge on the one that brought him to his current location and return home. From physical strength to mentality, Han knew he'd have to improve both in order to survive. A bit is revealed about his past, from time in the military to the fact that he grew up without parents and fended for himself. He decided he needed the same kind of tension from his past in order to overcome. He was pulled from his thoughts by a familiar voice, Jenna, who asked what he was doing. Han only glanced towards her briefly and continued with his push-ups, stating that he was training to kill monsters. Jenna asks why his tone was so harsh, and that she was looking for him. After a brief silence, Jenna pulls out her longbow and says she'd been thinking all night about what to do from that point onward, seeing as they couldn't simply leave. She says her father was a hunter and archery was her hobby, then declared she wouldn't be a burden to him. Her words rang true as she drew her longbow and struck the training dummy on the temple. She knew nothing would change by crying and could tell Han knew how to survive, and so her choice was clear. Han asks whether yesterday was her first fight and she replies yes, saying she prefers to stay home. He asks how good she is with a bow and she replies so-so. Glancing towards Jenna, the notification only he could see appeared and showed her stats. She received 4 points in stats from their previous battle, and seemed to have a unique skill already despite being lower in stats compared to him. Making a quick observation, Han took note of the fact that she managed to kill a goblin despite yesterday being her first time fighting. He also noticed how quickly she moved on from the deaths of the others and focused on her goal to escape, viewing her as a diamond in the rough. With that, he agreed to help her, to which she responded by reaching out her hand. She states that her father told her that connections are important in life, and adds that she looks forward to being Han's teammate. As the two shook hands, another notification appeared reading Jenna has goodwill toward Han and intimacy bonus has been created. It states that Han will receive bonus stats when forming a party with another hero. Han was clearly beginning to find the pop-ups somewhat annoying. After his training, Han calls out Eselle's name and she pops out fuming and yells at him, asking what he wanted and that she was busy. Han sarcastically comments on how fast she appeared despite her claims of being busy. Already knowing full well what Han was after by his previous actions, Eselle vociferates that she will not be answering any questions no matter how many times he asks, and urges him to climb the tower, asserting that the answers are within. Ignoring her words, Han asked whether he was the only one who could see the stat window above Eselle's head, which gave her pause. Stuttering, she tries to play dumb, but Han mentions her level, which was 257. Despite not answering, her silence was enough for Han to confirm his suspicion. He was now certain he was the only one who could see the stat windows, and the master anything's forged messages. Han asks what happens if the master quits playing the game, to which Eselle simply told him to pray that he doesn't. Han then asks whether the time in the game was different from Earth. Eselle yells at him to stop asking questions and that she'd not be answering them. Taking that as a yes, Han smirks and thanks Eselle for her mess-up, to which she responded by screaming and calling him a 1-star trash, clearly frustrated by him. Han reveals that the fairy Eselle could not do anything to him, as she was only permitted to interfere in cases of self-defense and when the master's orders are disobeyed. Knowing a bit about how the world worked already, he was determined to figure out all the rules one by one. Jenna asked what the two were talking about. Then Han proceeded to give her a brief explanation. He explains that someone called Master gives them orders through Eselle. He adds they'd have to get through 100 stages of the tower, and that they'd probably be able to leave after. Jenna asked whether they'd have to fight a lot of monsters, and Han explains that's the reason for his training. She asks if it'll only be the two of them, to which he explained that the master could summon more people. Han knew his survival hung on the choices he made from that point, despite their lives now ultimately being in the master's hands. After his training, Han discovered more of the world's rules. He found out that daily necessities refilled the next day, and if one imagined something they'd like to have, it would appear in a drawer or the closet. Of course, it had to be within reason, as things like guns and the like would not work. He also discovered something that he did not know while playing Pick Me Up. Some heroes, despite being the same rank as others, had higher combat power. Something they all had in common was they trained diligently. It is explained that training does not increase stats or levels, but refines skills and skill learning. Han, after learning all this, began to doubt. The heroes he saw on his phone screen while playing the game in the past were AI. Han, knowing the master would soon place the heroes into parties depending on mentality, skill, and physical capability, focused on the third category and continued training. On his third day of training, a notification window popped saying the master has logged in. Han managed to acquire 2 skills within the 3 days, and told Jenna to get ready as the master had arrived. As a party could have up to 5 people, Han assumed the master would summon 3 more, and he did just that. 3 heroes were summoned, named Aaron, Toby, and Yelsons, who were all confused and asked where they were. Han silently made his way to the weapons storehouse, while Jenna yelled at the new heroes to get ready to fight, saying they'd explain once they were safe. Toby asks who they were as Acel opens the gates to the tower, causing Jenna and Han to pick up the pace. The 3 were added to the party. Grabbing his sword and shield, Han yells at Jenna to get ready, while another notification appeared saying heroes without weapons would enter with an old iron sword. Since the last party members died, Han realized there was no weapons to give the new arrivals. Acel tells everyone to get in the tower, and the 3 new arrivals begin to argue with her. Jenna tries to mediate to prevent what happened to Carl the mercenary from happening to them. Han, ignoring the group, made his way to the gate, saying there was no reason explaining it to them as they'd find out in a few minutes anyways. Jenna followed after him, asking if the 3 will die, clearly worried. Han says they just need not to bother Acel, evidently not caring what happens to the 3. Acel threw the 3 into the gate, telling them to listen to her like the other 2, and tells them to have fun with a bright smile as the gate shuts. The party was transported onto the 2nd floor, their duty being conquest and goal to kill all the enemies. As the 3 new summons look around asking where they were, Han asks if Jenna was ready, to which she responds with a nervous yeah. Level 4 wolves and level 3 goblins began to approach the party, causing the new 3 heroes to be stricken by fear and a debuff that lowered their stats by 30%. Han, glancing toward Jenna, noticed she had the same debuff, clearly still scared by the situation. He lightly tapped her with his shield, asking whether she ate something bad, to which she jolted and screamed, telling him to not scare her like that. Han, telling Jenna to take the 2 goblins, said he'd take the wolves. Another notification then popped, saying Jenna was no longer in a state of fear. Glancing back at the new heroes cowering at the back, Han concluded they'd be useless in the battle. As the enemies begin to attack, Han yells that they were coming and drew his shield. While the wolf charged, he met its open mouth with his sword, piercing it in the jaw. The sword being too weak to kill it, he twisted the blade and slammed the wolf into the ground, ending it. The second wolf lunged at him from behind, to which he reacted quickly and blocked its gaping mouth, then swiftly slashed, missing it narrowly as it jumped in the air. Wasting little time, he lunged in with another slash, executing it mid-air before it could land. He yelled what happened to the goblins, as he turned towards Jenna, only to see the goblins dead with a lot of arrows piercing their bodies. As Jenna breathed heavily, Han asked how many arrows she shot, then told her to stop as they were dead. Jenna, calming down somewhat, responded with a yes. A prompt appeared saying the stage was complete, with Han and Jenna having leveled up and Han being the MVP. They were then transported back to the gate after receiving their reward, with a notification saying the second floor was cleared. Another notification suddenly popped, and Jenna asked what was happening, to which Han said they were going to the third floor. Observing the party's condition, Han knew it'd be a bad idea to continue, but it was the master's choice in the end. As a prompt said, the master logged off. Relief washed over Han. Han, noticing the pattern, assumed the master cleared a floor a day and estimated the next floor would be in 3 days. Assuming that time flowed 3 times faster in the lobby, he then checked his stats. They went up by 4 points in total, and his efficiency at leveling up improved. Toby and Yeltsin screamed at Jenna, asking why they had to fight and what those monsters were. Jenna tried to explain that they had to fight to survive, as they said they never held weapons in their lives before, which Jenna rebuked, saying she'd never done so either. 1 stars were commoners who lived life without fighting, as opposed to 2 stars and higher. Han noticed how 1 stars panicked in a fight, while 2-star Carl and 3-star Shay knew what to do right away and didn't hesitate. He wondered if they knew they were going to be summoned, and what their reason and goal for fighting was. He was certain Shay would have known the answer. Fed up with the 3, Jenna returned to Han, asking whether it would have hurt for him to help them out. Han responded saying why should he help out useless bastards, to which Jenna added he should help make them his colleagues, as it was better than having none. Han responded, since they'll die soon, he'd see what happens. Knowing full well what happens to useless heroes who don't die in battle, he knew it was only a matter of time until the 3 simply disappear. Han addresses the 3 new heroes saying he and Jenna would be the only ones fighting in the next battle, so they wouldn't have to worry. Toby then aggressively approaches him saying he has something to ask. Han simply glances at him and says don't. It's annoying. Toby snaps and grabs him by the collar, to which Han responds swiftly by punching him in the face, sending him falling onto the floor. He stood over him and said while the 2 of them were bleeding, they did nothing but stand behind them. Turning around, Han told Jenna that he did what she wanted as he fixed up his collar and left. Han and Jenna continued their training from basic exercises to weapon training to improve their ability. The other 3 refused to train and searched for an exit that didn't exist. The intensive training continued as Han asked Jenna to shoot arrows at him while he tried to cut them, unlocking some skills through the process. Jenna, who was slightly concerned as one of her arrows struck Han, was told not to worry as wounds heal quickly in the lobby, then urged to keep going. Soon, the master appeared, and the heroes came to the square. Toby and Yeltsin continued to complain about not wanting to fight and the food. Isel had clearly had it with them, and once more forced them through the gates. Transported to the 3rd floor, their mission was subjugation, and the goal to annihilate all enemies, which were goblins with some armor. Han, telling Jenna to do as they did in training, charged in first and ran his sword through the goblin's skull. The battle ended quickly with the 2 of them finding it easy. They cleared the floor with Jenna leveling up and being the MVP. Jenna says it was doable while Hans says it was boring. Jenna looked back toward the 3, seeing they were still not fighting. Han says it doesn't matter since he didn't want to share experience points with them. A prompt popped and sent the party into the 1st floor, which they cleared with ease, followed by floor 2 and 3, which they were sent through again. Han and Jenna, having done all the work, were tired by the end. Jenna says she's starting to get pissed off having to look after the 3, to which Han responds telling her not to worry and added this is it for today. Jenna asks what he means by that and says that the master seems to have different plans. Han responds by saying it seems that the master doesn't have enough free time to cultivate insects. A prompt follows his words and the master starts up the synthesis machine. As the 3 who refuse to fight watch on in confusion, Han glances from the side, seeing them as fools for not taking the opportunity to fight when the master sent them through the easier floors again for that very reason. Since the master can see everything from the screen of their phone, they know who is and isn't greatly contributing to the battle. The useful heroes naturally gain the master's favor, while useless ones don't. Isel tells Jenna and Elson to go into the synthesis machine, causing Jenna to turn to Han with worry. Han reassures her that it was okay, and that nothing would happen to her. Elson interjects and asks what will happen if they go in there. Han simply says he'll be judged for what he's done. Elson retorts, saying all he did was get dragged there for no reason, to which Han replies with, "That's just what you think." Han adds that even if Elson couldn't fight, things would have been different if he just tried. Eselle, tired of him, sends him into the synthesis machine. As Elson screams to be let out, blue flames envelop him. Then a moment later, Jenna exits the machine alone, having leveled up in the process and gained a new skill. She asks Han what just happened, then adds that the other guy just turned to light and vanished. Han says in this place useless people are sacrificed, then said it'd be his turn next, and looked back at the other two saying, "I wonder who among the two of you it will be." Terra overtook the two, and Eselle soon spoke, calling Han and Toby to enter the machine. Toby laughs hysterically, asking whether he's being sent home, to which Han simply says, "Sure, you can delude yourself into believing that." As screams left the machine, Han exited shortly after, having leveled up and learned a new skill. As he walks past Eren, he says, "You got lucky," leaving him scared. Jenna says, "If the master thinks you're not needed anymore, you disappear into that room, huh?" To which Han asked why she looked so gloomy, since she was complaining about cleaning up after them earlier. Jenna, shivering, asks whether she'd end up like them if she became useless one day. Han explains the higher the floor, the stronger the monsters and summoned humans will be. He adds that she'd either die to the enemy or become a sacrifice. After acknowledging his words, a brief silence followed. Han tells Jenna to listen to what her father said if she wanted to live, and reminded her to stand on the correct side. The following day, Jenna found Han in the training hall, and says she'll be in his care with the 40-degree bow. Confused, Han asks whether she ate something wrong. Jenna explains, saying, "You said you'd save me if I stand on your side, right? That's why I'm trying to make it clear here. Please take care of me." Han says she won't die as long as she did what was required of her, so she shouldn't worry. A familiar voice shouted, "Please let me in as well." It was Eren, who then continued, saying that he was sorry, he'd only caused inconveniences so far, and acknowledged his cowardice for leaving the fighting to them, then promises to change. Han asks how he could trust him, to which Eren responded by saying he'd kneel if that was what he wanted. Han, reaching for a training weapon, asked whether Eren had fought monsters before, while saying he was also summoned, knowing nothing of combat. Eren was surprised since Han fought so well. Han explains it's because of his determination to fight and survive as he tossed Eren the spear. Han says he's not an expert, but that he'd heard it was the easiest weapon to learn. Han asked whether he knew the concept of melee, mid and long, to which a cheerful Jenna interjected and explained melee ranged was sword, middle ranged was spear, and long ranged was bow. Han adds for 3 people with nothing, it was the most effective combination. Han pointed his wooden sword and told Eren to get ready to fight, to which he panicked and asked whether Han wasn't going to train him. Han responds by saying, "How can I teach you when I've never held a spear before?" As he rushed forward and swung at Eren. He added that he'd learned everything by himself, and that Eren could do the same, as he overwhelmed him with a barrage of strikes, saying he should at least be grateful he had someone to train with, since all he had was a scarecrow. Eren, shutting his eyes, swung at Han, who kicked him in the stomach, causing him to vomit. Han asks if that was all he could do even though it wasn't a fight with his life on the line, and added that he'd be dead if he was a monster. Jenna says, "It's his first day, aren't you being too harsh?" To which Han responds by saying he doesn't intend to carry burdens around, and will throw away anyone who can't catch up. Han asks Eren if he has family, who then mentions a little sister. Han says Eren is better off than him, and admits he has no one. He once more points the wooden sword at Eren and says, "What would happen if you don't go back?" He adds that death by monsters would be painful, and says he's better off getting synthesized. Han tells him to not start anything he couldn't finish, which seemed to provoke Eren and make him more serious, as he intended. Han wanders the square as the master starts adding new facilities, starting with the blacksmith. Han tells Eselle to come out if she's there, who then pops out telling him who he was to order her around. Han says he's sick of that response and tells her to say something else, which aggravated her. Han asks whether she could use the internet since she was able to send anything tips. She says she can, and that web surfing was her hobby. He says the tips she sent are probably from the forum, and Asel asks how he knows, to which he responds that Loki uploaded it. Asel asks if he knew Loki, and he says yes, since he was a pick-me-up user too. Asel scoffs, saying he is a low-level hero in the lower levels, then brags about Loki, saying, "Sir Loki is a master among masters, and the god of pick-me-up." She adds that he'd have been rank 1 if he had a 7-star hero. Han asks Asel why she likes Loki so much, and she says, it's because he's someone who makes the impossible possible. As Asel continues to sing Loki's praises, Han speaks, saying he feels sorry for her. Asel asks him what he just said. Han replies, saying, "I am Loki," and reveals his identity as the Master of Masters to Asel.